Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Kim Ann Curtin. Oh, microphone again doesn't come on, so I clicked it on. It should be clear now. Welcome to today's live coaching a day earlier than usual, simply because I have a dentist appointment tomorrow. So there you go. So let's just see here. I'm not sure if this is working. Let me see here. I'm going to try to get all the platforms connected, even though it seems to be more persnickety than ever before. I don't know why it's being so difficult, but what are you going to do? Never a dull moment, right, guys? Just always something. Just always something. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing good. Curious how the trading's been for you this week. Give me a heads up if you want to come in for some live coaching. I'm just getting everything set up here, so bear with me. Yeah, just some issues with regards to Restream and being a little bit of a pain in the neck. All right, let's get Instagram on. I've asked special guest if he could come on. He is a friend of this podcast. I've done a lot of episodes with him, and I'm hoping he can join us, but he may not be able to. And if he can't, that is okay, of course, but I hope he can join us because he's just so great. He's such a stoic. He truly is just one of those rare birds who just knows how to stay calm in the midst of a storm. And he does a yearly competition with colleagues of his that he just won again. He has won that championship quite frequently. And it's just amazing, his ability to just keep succeeding. He didn't win last year, but he was, I think, pretty close. So anyway, let's see if he is going to be able to join us. Oh, for whatever reason, Instagram is not letting me sync it. So I'm just going to have to let it go. So part of why I do these is truly to be a contribution back to everybody. I want to be able to coach those who are following me who perhaps are not going to be ever in a position to come into the coaching because of, just not in a place where they can financially do the coaching. So this is my way of trying to be a contribution to those folks and hopefully just be able to be doing these public live hot seats at least weekly. I try to do them almost every week. And so if you have, kind of any curiosity about how that works, you just have to come and watch me here. It looks like it's streaming on YouTube. It looks like it's streaming on X and LinkedIn. But for some reason, I don't know why it is not working on Instagram. So I just get all these messages from people on the different platforms asking me to, please Kim, put it up on Instagram because that's where I can watch it from. But, it doesn't look like I'm going to succeed at it today. I'm giving it one last shot, but for some reason, it just keeps telling me it can't do it. So let's just put this in one last time. So frustrating, guys. We troubleshot this today. I don't know if you were on deck, but we did try to troubleshoot this earlier before this live so that we could get it working for you guys because, I wanted to work for you and I wanted to work for all the channels so that there's, no issue. But I just can't, I don't know what the technical glitches are, but there definitely are some. Hello, Tina. It's so good to have you here. Tina is probably the most frequent flyer of the Wall Street Coach podcast. She has watched probably all of my episodes. Would that be correct, Tina? Have you watched all of my podcasts, which are like in the 500s? I'm pretty sure Tina has. And I just appreciate you so much, Tina, for watching and for always putting so many great questions and comments up on the podcast. And I'm very, very fortunate to have Tina here. In this circle, in this community of amazing traders. So, remember, today is about coaching. And even though I always come in with topics to talk about, ultimately, my hope is that I can, have some volunteers for coaching. So, how do you come in? I'll tell you. You want to click this link that I'm now putting up in the comments. You should be able to see that. And then also, I'm going to put this up on X for those who are watching on X. This is the link. If you look at the comments underneath this live, that is where the link to come into the room for some speed coaching is working on it. So Tina's working on watching all my podcasts. You are definitely more deep in to that sequence than anybody else, Tina. So thank you for watching it, and I really hope it's a contribution to you. Hope it's a contribution to everybody, every trader. So today's topic is something I may or may not have spoken about before, but and also what I keep forgetting to do is tell you guys like who I am, because what I do have been learning is that people come into this live stream that really don't know who I am. They see it on X or they see it on YouTube and they're like, oh, let me check this out. But I've been told that I don't always talk about who I am and kind of give social proof. So let me give you some social proof. My name is Kim Ann Curtin, the Wall Street Coach. I've been coaching for over 18 years, and I've been in the world of finance for 29 years. It's probably 30 at this point because time moves so much faster than I can even believe. So I'm a performance mindset coach for traders. I've worked with executives and traders for the past 18 years. Why? Because I hired a coach over 19, 20 years ago, and it was life-changing. And in that moment, I knew that I was being called to become a coach. At a fairly young age, I had heard Joseph Campbell talk about why it was so important to follow your bliss. And I was like, what the hell is my bliss? And so I was on a journey, a search for my bliss. And then at some point, I found coaching through my own personal experience. And I found it to be the most life changing, game changing technique, practice I had ever experienced. And it was truly in my first conversation with my coach that I could just feel the lightning bolt of this is it. This is your bliss. This is the path to go. And so I walked away from King Street Capital, one of the largest hedge funds in the world. This is not a position anybody walked away from, guys. Like, I can remember when I went up to my colleagues to tell them I was going to leave, they were just like, you're kidding, right? And I was like, no. I mean, it was just such a crazy move. But I just knew I had to have that bliss. And so I did what I did. So who else have I worked for, especially with over these past years? I've worked with hedge funds. I've worked with sovereign wealth funds. I've worked with prop firms, 7 and 8 figure traders. I've worked with mid and large cap C-suite executives. That means chief executive officer, CEO, CFO, chief financial officer, COO, chief operating officer, CTO, chief technology officer. I've worked with fintech CEOs. I've worked with unicorn startups. You name it, guys. I think I've worked in every industry, but as a coach, other than porn. And if they called and they wanted some executive coaching or trader coaching, I'd be on deck. But the heart of the trader coaching, even though I coach traders over the years, most of those traders were institutional traders that were at big, big firms trading millions and millions of dollars. And I started to do more retail day traders in this past 5, maybe 6 years, thanks to me being hired as a co-host for the Steady Trade podcast. So they brought me on before COVID, and little did any of us know what was about to happen. And that began my journey with the day trading community. I had day traders over the years, but the volume completely kind of shifted towards day traders 5, 6 years ago when I started to do the Steady Trade podcast. And at the same time, give or take, maybe it's 4 years ago. It's all kind of messy in my memory bank. I started my own podcast. I had a couple of good friends at the time who said, Kim, you should start your own podcast. And I'm so glad I did because, I wasn't with Steady Trade forever. It lasted, I don't know, 3 years, give or take 4 years. And then I started to, keep more doing my own podcast, which I'm really grateful for, Steady Trade, because that got me in front of this amazing community. It got me in front of all of you. I have so many good colleagues and friends and clients from this community now. And it feels like this is home now. I know this is where I belong. I still do coach executives, founders, CEOs, and this like. And a lot of my social media and these live coaching is specific to the day trading community because I think I get you guys in the sense that as you're very entrepreneurial, right? You eat what you kill. You have to hustle for whatever your trading account is going to do or not do. It's really truly a mindset game. If you don't have your mindset on right, doesn't matter how much of a genius you are, how much of a mathematician you are, how great your strategies are, if you don't stick to them. And part of what I see the correlation between entrepreneurship is you have to be in it to win it. You have to be able to hustle and not take the downward dips or the hits. Personally, you got to keep going. So I feel our two different positions are very similar in that way. So again, please, if you want to have some coaching, please click that link. It says Studio Restream. That will put you in the green room, and then I will bring you in and do some laser coaching for you right here. Today's topic that I wanted to speak about was how you have to be in it to win it. So you heard me reference that before. What does that mean, right? This was actually the New York City, New York State's lottery marketing campaign was you have to be in it to win it. And they were talking about, of course, the lottery. But the heart of that message, I feel, is really true for traders. You do have to be in it to win it. And I don't mean a specific trade. I mean a mindset, a certain perspective. So here's the story that is so probably unexpected for you, unless you've listened to me for a long time. Maybe you've heard me reference it. But at the time, my sister and I worked for Tower Records. I did Ticketmaster. So I, was obviously running the ticket. I was working for Tower, but I was in charge of the Ticketmaster booth. And basically, my sister was madly in love with Axl Rose. She so wanted to meet him. And I was determined for us, it was the Use Your Illusion tour. They were going to be at Madison Square Garden. And I was like, I got to get tickets for my sister and I. And so I did, of course, because Ticketmaster helped, right? Because those tickets popped out. We got them pretty quick. I mean, we had to pay for them, but still, it was, it's hard. Ticketmaster used to sell out all the time. Before Pearl Jam took them out, they were the only game in town. And, anyway, that was the way you got tickets back in the day. So long story short, we get to the Pearl Jam. We get to the Guns N' Roses concert at Madison Square Garden. And my sister, again, she just, I guess it was like a crush, but she just, I guess, had read up all about him and how he, gone through this, that, and the other thing and was still ticking. So she found him inspiring and she really was like, oh, I wish I could meet him. So after the concert was over, I saw this group of people who clearly had backstage passes and they were obviously waiting to be taken backstage after the Guns N' Roses show. Now, I promise there's a reason I'm telling you this story, guys. So I'm like, oh, maybe we can kind of just see if we can get away with hanging with those people, and maybe I get my sister a little closer to backstage. So we do this for, I don't know, a half hour to an hour. And remember, this is New York City. It's now probably at least 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning because, the concert. Axel was very late that night. I think the concert was 2 hours late. He was late or an hour late. It was like, big crowd. And it was, people were pissed. So long we get with this little group, but then at some point they want to see our access, backstage, and we don't have these. So I'm like, okay, this isn't gonna work. So then I noticed these other guys, these were kind of two biker guys with from California. He's from California, has this big group of bikers that he's friends with for years. So I could tell these guys were like probably, his buddies, but they were obviously in the big Madison Square Garden. But what they had on their chest was the tag that said access all areas, which those other people did not have. So I say to my sister, hey, let's start to walk behind these guys, not too close so they think we're trying to, get away with what we're trying to get away with, but just far enough back where maybe the security will think we're with them. So that's what we did. And dude, we got through 3 checkpoints because people just presumed we were with these biker guys. And at some point, Red Ed, who became my friend later in the story, he turns around and he looks at me and my sister and he's like, oh, they think you girls are with us. And we were like, oh, really? We played all innocent and coy. And he's like, yeah, all right, girls, let's see how far we can take this. And wouldn't you know it, he got us past a whole bunch of other doors. But the inner sanctum, which is where the whole band was, we couldn't get in without that tag on us. So what happened at Red Ed, which is his name, I swear to God, he's like, girls, if I could get you in here, I'll come back out. But like Axel's in a bad mood because the New York Times had bitched about him being late the night before. He's like, I don't know if he's gonna let anybody else come back here, but like I'll try. So a couple of hours go by. And at some point, I said to my sister, like, we're gonna miss the last train out of the city if we stay much longer, but we got to give it a shot, right? So this is the in it to win it mentality. I had no guarantee. If anything, I was almost guaranteed to not get my sister in backstage to Guns N' Roses. That was crazy, right? If I was in any kind of a limiting belief, I would have said, this is crazy. We're not going to make it. I wouldn't even have tried in the first place. So what happens? I think, okay, well, my mother knows that we're in the city. I've got my little sister with me trying to get her into this crazy concert, right? So I was like, we're going to have to call her and tell, because the last train left Penn Station at like 3:30 in the morning, some crazy time. And I was like, we're going to miss that if we don't leave right now. So I was like, all right, let me call mom, this before cell phones, and tell her, hey, guess what? We're not coming back till tomorrow morning because the next train is out of Penn Station, like 6 a.m. or something. So we don't, of course, have phones. So I got to use a payphone. And there is a payphone on the inside of this inner sanctum backstage, hangout where the band is, Axel is, Red Ed, Slash, everybody, right? All the other rock stars that were visiting their concert. So I asked the guy, I said, look, I got to call my mom. Can you just let me go and use the payphone? I'll come right out. And he looks at my sister and he looks at me. He's like, okay, but she has to stay. You can go in to do the payphone and then come right back out. I was like, fine. So I go in. I make the call. She says, go for it, which really was a surprise because she was such a nervous Nelly. And while I'm in there, the guard at the door changed. So a new security guard came on deck. And guess what, guys? He didn't know that I didn't belong there. He just presumed I was already good to go. So at some point, I start chatting to him. And I say, look, I feel so bad, that my sister didn't get a backstage pass. He's like, your sister? I was like, yeah, look, she's right there. We look exactly the same. Not exactly, but similar. We clearly look like sisters. So he's like, all right, I'll let her in, but nobody else. So I was like, okay. He lets my sister in. My sister's like, what the hell? Did you promise this guy that I'm coming in? She was like so nervous. I'm like, oh shit, what's going on? Anyway, she comes in and then she's like, holy shit, are we on the inner sanctum? I'm like, we are in the inner sanctum. I'm like, we gotta be cool. We gotta be cool. Now, let me say this too, guys. We did not look like we belonged back there because we were just dressed in, you know, regular clothes. We were not wearing leather bras, which a lot of the girls back there were. And at some point, Redhead sees us and he's like, look, ladies, I don't know how you got yourselves into here, but I don't think Axel is coming out. So the reason I'm telling you this whole story, guys, is if you can hear the pace of this night, there was a door closed in our face multiple times, right? If you've been counting, there's almost like 5 or 6 really logical reasons why we should have said, we're not going to be able to make this happen. But we were in it to win it. Long story short, we're back there. We're seeing the rock stars. We see, what's his name? What's the drummer from Metallica? He walks by us. We're just like, oh man, we are not in Kansas anymore. And there's food on the table. It's very civilized for a backstage Guns N' Roses concert at Madison Square Garden. I was very surprised. I was like, are we going to see people snorting cocaine? I didn't know what was going to be going on. Very civilized, big buffet spread, beers, snacks, a bar with the whole 9 yards. And we're just standing in this room, trying to keep cool, trying to look like we belong. When all of a sudden, Axl Rose comes out of his dressing room and walks right in to this room. Now, my sister looked like she was ready to pass out. I was ready to pass out. I was like, holy shit, he is right here with us. And so my sister's up against the wall because she's just like, she probably thought she was hallucinating. Neither one of us had taken anything even to drink. So we were completely stone sober, but she looked like she was going to faint. And I was like, this I didn't plan on. Like, how do I do this? How do I get her in front of him? Blah, blah. Some people talk to him. It's a pretty chill room. These are all people who know him, obviously. So no big fans were in the room except for my sister. And basically, one of the other biker guys, he sees this reaction in my sister and he steps in and he's like, hey, Axel. And Axel turns, hey, Joe. And Joe goes, he says to my sister, the man says to my sister, hey, what's your name? She's like, Hope. And he goes, hey, Axel, this is Hope. She would like to make your acquaintance. And he turns to my sister and they sat on the couch and had a nice 15-minute conversation where he was the perfect gentleman to my sister. That story, guys, I tell that story because there are so many reasons why that shouldn't have happened. And the reason it happened was because me and my sister, we were in it to win it. What was the worst that was going to happen? We didn't meet him. And I want you to apply this to your trading. You might be like, what is this long ass story for, Kim? This is in service to how your mindset can absolutely transform even the most unbelievable potential possibility from happening. If you constantly are enduring an inner critic or an inner saboteur that is telling you that you can't do this, you are being completely brainwashed to believe that you can't. And this is why it's so important for your mindset to be paid attention to. Too often, most traders are not paying attention. They are not listening. They are not actually connecting to what the atmosphere is in their head. Now, even in that story, you can see that there were critical moments where we could have logically said, this is not going to happen. We first try to hang out with the fans, right? The people who are going to get some backstage P.S. Those people, they never really got backstage. They got back to the stage where the performance was, but they didn't get to the inner sanctum. Just the evidence alone of getting through multiple checkpoints. I mean, guys, Madison Square Garden, I don't know, maybe some of you aren't familiar. Madison Square Garden it's massive. It's the entire size of a city block. The checkpoints for security for Guns N' Roses at the height, they were at the height of their success, guys. November Rain. I mean, this was like a sold out concert. So this was there's no sense to this day. Even my sister and I talk about it. We're just like, how did that happen? But because we were so in it to win it, there are doors that opened that normally wouldn't have opened. We were in a flow state. And yes, I would agree with you. What is the worst that could have happened to us, right? We didn't get backstage. But you've got to ask yourself this too. If you are managing your risk, if you actually believe that a strategy has proven itself, what is the worst that can happen? You've got to take a very hard look with an X-ray machine, right? With a microscope. You've got to look deeply at what is the self-talk you're constantly enduring. Because if that self-talk is telling you this is too impossible, this is too hard, this can't happen for you, who do you think you are? If you're constantly listening to the comparison to other traders, all of this stuff, guys, is absolutely leaking all the fuel that you have in your tank out on the tarmac and keeping you from up leveling. Now, I really want you to hear this part two of the story. Not once did I start to go into magical thinking. The entire time, I was very grounded in the reality that this may not happen. I mean, my sister and I were not wearing leather bras. Like, I wasn't going to do some crazy shit to get us in there. I was very conscious that this was a long shot, but I also was going to give it all I got. So, when I tell you to be in it to win it, I'm not advocating you be irresponsible, that you sell your soul. I'm not advocating that you ignore your logic or your sense of strategic thought. You have to be careful. You have to get educated. You have to earn your right to trade, because trading has to be something that's built on a solid foundation. But if you do all that and you keep letting your inner critics and your inner saboteurs completely hijack your mind throughout the trading day and in between the trading takes the days that you trade, you've got to realize that is going to undermine all of your process. And the first step, guys, is simply noticing, right? Rick Carson says that in his book, Taming Your Gremlin. You have to start to simply notice. And sometimes a lot of people have been with their inner critics for so damn long that they actually believe that the voice they're listening to is theirs. But it isn't. If you feel lousy after the self-talk you hear, that is an indicator, guys, that you're listening to your inner critic. If you hear should, would, could, you are not listening to your own voice. You are listening to an inner critic. I'm not saying your own inner voice doesn't ever give you hard truths, but it's not going to beat the living daylights out of you. So if you are feeling like you're constantly feeling bad about yourself, you are probably listening way too often to an inner critic. And I really want you to knock it off, because it's costing you in ways that you cannot even imagine. Not just in your trading, guys, not just in your trading, but in your entire life. I promise you, whatever is showing up inside of your trading is showing up in your life. And it's possible you have just been ignoring what is showing up in your life. Nothing ever just shows up in just one, kind of branch. The tree, it's coming from the trunk of the tree. Trading is one branch off of your life. It isn't the trunk of the tree. So you've got to take a look at other departments of your life, from your physical health to your relationship to money, to your relationship to how you are when in relationship to people. You have to take a look at all these places, because what and how you show up in your trading is definitely showing up in your relationships, in your relationship to money, into your ability to be comfortable with your own humanity, in your health, physical and mental health. All of these areas are the branches on the trunk of you, the tree. And if you don't take a really good look at the places where these things are messy or not tended to, it's going to cost you in your trading. And I don't want to see that happen, because if you don't have money, capital for your trading, it's over. Even traders who have small accounts, no, they can't leverage until they get more capital. They can't really do the kind of level of success they want. So why would you ever want to compromise whatever capital you have? You would, even if you're a seven-figure trader, if you lose capital, again, your ability to trade at a very high level is going to be compromised. So you have to guard your capital with all the self-awareness you can bring up. And if you find yourself beating yourself up, that is not self-awareness, guys. It's just not. A lot of traders mix it up. They think being hard on themselves is going to snap them out of it. But you really got to ask yourself, if being this hard on yourself worked, wouldn't you be better? Like, has it worked so far? This constant beating yourself up. If it hasn't, hello, it might be time to try another way. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you. I'm saying it to myself, because, like, I need to hear these things. This is stuff I am striving to always practice. I try to practice what I preach, guys. I don't always succeed, but I am constantly coming back to, like, simply noticing. Today I was sharing this with Tina earlier today. I go to this little cute diner here, and one of the girls, who I don't think is that much younger than me, to be honest, but you never know. Um, she called me auntie, and it's just like ruined the next 15 minutes for me, because I was like, auntie? Do I look that old? Oh my God, she's calling me auntie. They call people here in Hawaii auntie or uncle. It's a sign of respect. Anybody older than you call them auntie or uncle. But she's called me auntie all morning in the diner. And I was so depressed when I left, because I'm hearing my inner critic, oh, you're so old. Oh, you should have taken that Botox shot from your dermatologist 2 months ago. Like, and then 15 minutes in, guys, I was like, oh my God, my inner critic took that comment and is running with it now, and is bringing me into a downward spiral, which is what it did. But it's not like I felt 100% better once I caught it, but I caught it. I caught it. I was like, oh my God, I'm listening to oh my God, I'm getting old inner critic. And I just got into a tailspin about it for 15 minutes. Like, not so bad, but still, that's 15 minutes I'm not going to get back. And I was in a good mood when I walked in there this morning. And I was like, oh, I'm an old hag. And I left, because his inner critic just started to go off on me. That's how quick they can take hold of the driving wheel. That's how quick they can hijack all of us. And that's why you've got to be vigilant, guys. You've got to be vigilant to notice, oh my God, there it is again. All right, so I'm going to pause, take a breath, take a sip of my Diet Coke, and see if anybody's ready to come in for some coaching. I don't see any volunteers so far. Where are you guys? Where are you? I'm hoping there are some traders that are ready to come into the hot seat. So what's going to happen if you volunteer for the hot seat? You're going to come into a green room. I will request you have a camera, because we usually do this all on camera. Oh, I was thirsty. I went off on a tangent there with my Guns N' Roses story. So you come into the room, and then you speak about one topic, one issue where you're struggling. And that issue is going to be what I coach you on. I'm only going to coach you on a topic of your choosing. You don't have to speak about the most deepest, darkest, private things you're struggling with, although you can. But I get it. This is on a public platform, this is on live. You don't have to bring something that maybe to you feels too vulnerable to talk about. I want you to feel comfortable with it being out there. Obviously, it's going to be on my YouTube channel and on X and all these other channels, even if some of them aren't working today. But the point is, bring even one thing, because this is what happens, guys. And this is part of why I love coaching. Even the person saying the issue out loud can sometimes be enough. Now, you could be like, that's crazy. How could that actually help? But when you are talking to somebody who is truly listening to you without judgment, right? Without the plan of what they're going to say in response, when I'm listening to clients and I'm doing my job, I am not formulating an answer. I am completely kind of like empty, because I want to just be present to what's alive in the client in that moment. If I am over here in my head in this, that, and the other thing, then I'm not present to what the client's saying in that moment. But here's what also happens when we infrequently, unfortunately, because obviously most people aren't really trained in how to listen like this. When we talk to people, often what's happening is people stop listening at some point to start to plan what it is they're going to respond to you with. And that disconnect affects you as well. So, part of why I have experienced my own personal coaching to be so powerful and see it in the clients I work with is it's because what happens is, if you are being truly listened to, also without judgment, right? When you're being truly listened to without judgment, this is the magic that happens. You can hear yourself. And when you actually hear yourself and the beliefs that often you don't even have, but your inner critic does, you'll be like, wait a minute, do I really believe this? They'll be like, did I just say that? I know that's happened to me when I did my coaching. I would be like, she would kind of look at me, my coach, and be like, did you just hear what you just said? I was like, what the hell? Where is that coming from? In that moment, what happens is you can finally have reflected back to you these awful kind of beliefs that your inner critic has been telling you for so long that you have not even realized you've been walking around listening to. That is the most powerful piece that happens in a coaching dynamic, is you begin to hear what your own beliefs are. It is shocking, the beliefs that a lot of us carry around with us. And unless you are with those who are able to deeply listen to you, it is hard for you to hear that over the cacophony of noise with all the inner critics most of us are walking around with. And the key here, too, guys, and this was in an earlier conversation today, the key is not to expect that these inner critics are going to be gone. They are going to be with us on this bus called our vehicle for the rest of our life. But the key here is to not presume that they get to drive the bus. That is the most critical piece. You can absolutely start to notice them. And once you do start to notice them, guess what? That is when you can reduce the volume of what they sound like. And that is all that I want you guys to keep in mind. All you need to do is to simply notice them. And that is when things start to change. I'm going to just send this to our friendly surprise guest to see if he can come. In case you can come, you'd click this button. I'm just sending him the link to join the stream in case he's available. All right. So really, we got 76 people here. I'm going to presume most of those are traders, and nobody's coming in for speed coaching today, huh? Remember, you would bring the topic that you want to be coached on, and it would be just a laser focus on that which you're wrestling with the most. Ultimately, what I see often in this space is a combination of inner critics that have hijacked the trader over, a difficulty, ready for this, a difficulty with trading sometimes being too easy. I know that sounds insane, but follow this line of thought. If you are coming from any kind of mindset that you have to put in a certain level of work ethic, once you have paid your dues as a trader, once you actually start to become really good, what often happens on the other side of that is there are traders that make it too difficult simply because they need to feel challenged. A lot of sophisticated or at least experienced traders will have a disconnect between the strategies that work for them that they really want to just do, and then feeling like they have to put a lot of effort, even though their strategy worked that day. Now, if you're a trader who says, I want to learn multiple strategies, that's a different conversation. But there are a lot of traders out there who have that strategy down and they just need to stick with it and then get off the desk. But part of the disconnect for some traders are that they feel like almost guilty that they aren't pouring their blood, sweat, and tears continuously every day. And this can happen, guys, after you have been at this for a while. It can be difficult to keep your time limited on how much you're trading. It's going to depend very personally for each individual trader. But I have had traders who have come in and done my assessment, which here is a shout out for it, the Trader Positioning Index. This assessment, guys, is a game changer. It is going to tell you exactly where you have to pivot in your trading, in your personal life. It's going to show you where you possibly are too idealistic. And that means to always be living and trading from the standpoint of how it could be, how it should be, how it ideally life should unfold. The market should unfold for me. When you are too idealistic, what happens is you will have a feeling of never being satisfied. You will have a feeling of constantly feeling like what is how you are isn't enough. That can become costly. The other extreme is you can be somebody who is too realistic, somebody who is completely not ever imagining any kind of possibility beyond the black and white that's in front of them. Both of these are two extremes, but knowing where you are on that spectrum allows you to be, again, conscious of it and present to it. And that is the key. What all of us need to know is sort of where we stand by way of our big picture thinking, by way of our work ethic. There are single digit, it's a 0 to 80 scoring at the top of this Trader Positioning Index, and it will measure a person's ability to relationally connect to people work ethic, and big picture thinking, strategic thinking. These three are measured. And I have seen a lot of sync, the lower the score, the better. So the closer to zero is the stronger the score. But with every strength, of course, there's always a bit of a shadow to it. I've seen so many traders come back with single digit scores for work ethic, right? Most traders I meet, they are workhorses. They can take down a mountain of work with one arm tied behind their back. But that can be sometimes costly because it means you won't know what to do with yourself if you're not working. And honestly, often that kind of level of work can undo the success you've created in the first place in your trading because you just think I have to work all the time. I'm not saying you don't have to work hard as a trader, but there is a cutoff point where that hard work sabotages the gains you've made. It keeps you sitting in front of your screens all day when that is not actually what's going to help you succeed. So you've got to really measure, guys, this kind of way you're operating. Is it coming from because you still have to earn your stripes, or is it coming because you don't know how to shut working off? That is very critical. The other thing too that I've seen with that trader position index is really strategic traders, really problem solving geniuses who become bored with their trading and start to get themselves into trades that are complicated because they need to be challenged, because they want to have an adventure, because they need to have their creativity stimulated. You can imagine how that winds up. That does not do well. I say to those guys or gals, get a side hustle going. Have 4 Rubik's Cube that you have to pour your creativity and your genius strategy into. Start to play chess, like do something that forces that creative, adventurous, strategic mind of yours to be stimulated so that you don't wind up taking what really should be a very clear template, the rules preset beforehand, and you don't keep sabotaging what are those successes. And I think this happens more often to those who have come from other industries where their constant creativity, their constant problem solving was welcome, was helpful. But you've got to realize that sometimes some of that can be sabotaging to your trading. And I really want you to be conscious of how and what and where in your trading is it. Do you stay too long? You've got to know when to come out. And that is the same too for so many different kind of sports out there. Specifically, I'm going to speak to surfing because surfers have to know when enough is enough. You've got to measure your health that day. How tired are you? How nourished are you? What are your muscles like? Are you hitting fatigue? I remember when I was first learning how to surf, I was out with the guy for hours. It was a teacher. He was a surf instructor. This was a huge Hawaiian man. Like he was so strong, and he was like, I have to go eat now. Like he was like, he knew exactly how to take care of himself. And so I thought, oh, I could probably go for a little bit longer because I was, not this big, huge 6'4" Hawaiian. I was like, I think I'm okay. But he was like giving me drills to do. So I was staying out there. Guess what happens? Within about a half hour of him leaving me, I wound up throwing up in the ocean because I had exhausted my body. I was trying so hard. I was nervous. I was, in Waikiki, like it was like a dream come true. And I was so excited, but I've been with him for hours and had done so much. And my body just like gave out because I wasn't listening, because I wanted to stay out there, wanted to get it, wanted to get the surf down and have him come back and be like, good job. So I pushed my body too far. Poor thing. I'm like out there throwing up in the ocean. Like, he's like, what happened? I was like, I think I'm just exhausted. It's all the upper body. Like you just had to keep paddling out. But that was me not paying attention. So ask yourself, guys, what is happening to your body? What is happening to you as you trade? What is happening to your mental well-being? What is happening to your mindset? Did you eat? Do you know how many traders I talk to who ignore their need to go to the bathroom? Now, I get it. You're in the middle of a big trade. You gotta stay there. You gotta watch it. But guys, like 4 hours, 5 hours, like I get it. Sometimes you gotta watch a trade. But if you're not listening to your body's basic needs, if you're not being honest with yourself about how and where you're coming from with your relationship to trading, you are costing ultimately your trading account. And I don't want to see you guys pay that price. All right. So I'm not hearing back from our secret special guest. So he probably can't come, which is too bad. But I would love to see one of these 93 people across all these platforms to please come in, take that restream link. You guys should be able to see it. It's right underneath my live. So if you're watching me on X, just go below this live stream and click that reply button. Or I think, yeah, you guys can see. You don't even have to click the reply button, but that's where it is. It's right underneath. And then if you guys are watching on YouTube, you can also press it there. So let me know if there's anybody here who has if maybe you want to come in and you have some questions. Put them in the chat box, guys. I can see them. I have X opened. And do I have yeah, for some reason Instagram isn't working. So that is not working. But I do have it up on X and I do have it up on YouTube. And I think it said it was up on Facebook too. So if anybody's watching there and has a question about whether to come on, what will happen, then just put it in the chat box. I'll answer you. Or just click the restream link, come on into the green room, and we could talk in person here about what it entails. So the other thing too that I just wanted to suggest, because I always try to come in with some topics, is part of the practice is to see if you can notice, and I often tell traders, try to practice this outside of your trading, right? Because practicing this in your trading is going to be a heavier lift. So I always say go for the lower the low-lying fruit, so to speak. So see if you can just for like the next week allow things to come into your, consciousness, right? Maybe a car cuts you off on the highway. Maybe somebody gives you a nasty comment. See if you can just begin outside of trading to observe what's happening as opposed to stepping into preference. So the phrase I want you to maybe write down for yourself is observance without preference. Now, that might seem like a strange thing to do. Why do I suggest you do this? Because most of the time, without even realizing it, we are in a place, and I'm going to kind of like imitate the experience internally of like, I like this, I don't like that. I like this, I don't like that. This is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. We are constantly, our default setting is a place of judgment. I want this, I don't want that. It's hot, it's too cold. It's always hopping to preferences. It's always happening. It's always putting it into a bucket of this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. I like that person, I don't like that person. This is making me happy, this is making me mad. That kind of back and forth is often our default state. And part of what I'm advocating for you to be able to eventually take into your trading is that ability to be a neutral observer. You do this for yourself because what happens is it allows you also to have a little bit of space, a little bit of distance between yourself and the opinion, right? We're meaning making machines. We're always making meanings. We're always falling into opinion unless we intentionally start to practice being an observer. Why would this be important to do as a trader? Because often traders are having to make split second decisions. Often traders are coming from a place of determining what they're looking at and whether or not they're going to get in. If you are going to be completely saturated always with preference, you may or may not be seeing what the market is actually putting in front of you. But if you begin to learn how to observe without preference, you have a better chance of actually seeing not what you want to see, not what you wish you were seeing, not what you hope the market would do, but what it is actually doing. Until you can begin to receive what the market is doing, what life is doing without hopping into your preference, you have a much better chance at being able to see everything as it actually is. But what happens is a lot of times traders don't see what is actually in front of them. They instead see what they want to see. And that is when the trouble begins. Can anybody relate to this? Anybody? Just put it in the comments so I can see. Not a lot of interaction today. So I don't know if you guys are here watching this or maybe trading on the side or playing Nintendo. I guess it's after market hours. It's only 1 o'clock my time, so I have to always put myself in the 5 hours ahead. Can anybody relate to this concept of wanting the market to be a certain way and the way the market actually is? I think it's really, really important, guys, to realize that how we prefer things to be often can blind us, can jade our vision around what's in front of us. The other, besides our preference, it also happens because there is a part of us that thinks we won't be able to handle the market, our trading, our life. Thank you, Tina. I'm glad you can relate to that. I mean, I'm glad that you're sharing that you can relate to that. I think also part of why this happens is because there is this sort of concept that you won't have what you need to handle these potential reality checks. And a phrase that I've spoken about here before that I use quite often, including myself in my own practice, is the phrase even if, right? Often what our mind says are things like, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happens? What if that happens? And what I try to say is turn that into even if this happens, even if that happens. That is a mindset shift. That gives you the benefit of the doubt that you will have what you need to handle it. All right, what does Tina say here? That's how easy it is to miss when the market changes. I think that's a really well said thing. That's it, Tina, because it can change so in a split second, half of a split second, a quarter of a split second. And if you are projecting what you want the market to do, what you hope the market will do, you could be on that train of thought. It's like a runaway train. And before you even have a chance to interrupt that train from racing down the tracks, your capital's gone. And that's why it's so important to just always be conscious, always be aware of what is happening inside of yourself. And the only way that you can do that, the only way is if you begin to practice observance without preference. We're going to slip into preference, but I want you to notice, oh, look at that. I slipped into preference again. I want this. I want it to go that way or this way. Isn't that fascinating? That's my favorite catchphrase that I learned from Ben Zanzer. He's the author of a great book called The Art of Possibility. Such a good book. And Zander says, when we respond to ourselves doing something that we preferred, we didn't. If we can respond again in this neutral way of like, oh, how fascinating. I did this, I did that way. It allows for us to look at what we've done, the costly behavior, in such a way that it actually facilitates us moving much closer to change, much quicker to change. Why? Because we're able to look at that behavior without a lot of judgment, without this like school mom, church lady type finger making us feel ashamed. And that is how change happens, guys. Doesn't happen because you're just beating yourself up. It really happens from you starting to become aware and to also notice what is the driver of whatever that behavior that's costly is. Often, what I have learned is that down deep inside, what is motivating a lot of costly behavior is the experience of not feeling like one is enough. And that is where a lot of the problems begin. And that's our job. Our job as human beings on this journey called life is to start to notice how crazy could that be that any of us would think we're not enough. If we're here, we're enough. You do have to earn your stripes to be a successful trader, but you don't have to earn anything to be a successful human being. And that I want everybody to really take away from this conversation today. How and who you are fundamentally does not have to be earned. You are enough. Marissa Peer taught me this great mantra a long time ago. You are enough. You've always been enough. You will always be enough. And that is a statement that I would recommend you say to yourself, except you say it in the first person. I am enough. I have always been enough. I will always be enough. When you start to use that mantra, start to step into that construct, when you start to actually practice believing that truth, there are so many costly things that you are currently doing that will just drop and fall off to the side. Just like a snake skin, guys, it will just go by the wayside. And that is a belief just like the one you currently have is a belief. So people are like, oh, I can't step into that belief, Kim. I don't believe that yet. I'm like, that's okay. But where you have all this years been listening to this other belief without actually any evidence as it is. And you're inner critical to say, oh, well, you have evidence of this and evidence of that. But that is all misinformation. So you got to ask yourself, is it possible that I down deep inside don't feel like I'm enough? And I'm coming from a place of having to earn my value just as a human being. Yeah, you do have to earn your stripes as a trader, but you don't have to earn your stripes as a human being, guys. And if your sense of identity hasn't been healed, hasn't been kind of tended to, if it hasn't been given any kind of light in the sunshine, then often a lot of the self-sabotaging behavior can be boiled down to just simply not feeling like one is enough. And that is really the root of so much self-destructive behavior that we see, not just in ourselves, but in the world around us. It all comes down to people not seeing their value, not seeing their worthiness. So please do some mindfulness work this coming week. I'll be back here next Wednesday. I have a dentist appointment tomorrow. That's why I can't do it tomorrow. I'm doing a couple of things tomorrow in addition to that. So it just wasn't going to happen. So what I have to look for is how I'm going to pull this off next Wednesday, but I will figure it out. So I just wanted to I was hoping I'd get at least one person to volunteer for coaching today, but no such luck. It's probably because I'm doing it on a different day than I normally do. But I appreciate everybody for coming here today. I hope this was valuable. I hope that, and remember, guys, I still have the Trader Vent email. If you don't want to come on here publicly because you feel too shy, then just call Trader Vent, which is a 646 area code. And that phone number is 828-7736. You can leave your issue on Trader Vent voicemail, and then but you got to do it before I do the live, because I listened to it that morning before I go on, and just put your issue on the Trader Vent voicemail, and then I'll play your voicemail and I'll speed coach you based on what you tell me the issue is you're struggling with. Thank you, Tina, for being here and for your comments. You're the only one commented today out of these 98 people. So thank you for being willing to do that. And what else do I have to say? Yeah. So ask yourself this week. Here's your homework, guys. Are you in it to win it? Are you crazy enough to give yourself the benefit of the doubt that you can accomplish these big, bodacious goals that you set for yourself, even though on paper it may look like it's a crazy idea? That day, me talking my sister and me backstage to Madison Square Garden's Guns N' Roses Inner Sanctum, we could never have ever imagined that that was possible. But my willingness to be in it is how that came to be. Ask yourself, where are you limiting yourself? Where are you holding yourself back? What is the dialogue you're enduring in your head? Be conscious of it, be aware of it, because if you aren't aware of it, I promise you, it is going to drive you into circles and not let you go live the life you really actually want to. Second, I want you to be very conscious and see if you can start to observe without preference. Watch yourself slip into judgment, right or wrong, labeling. We're constantly, this is good, this is bad, this is hot, this is cold. I like them, I don't like them. Just notice your tendency to go into preference. And I want you to practice observance without preference, because it's going to make you a better trader. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. I hope to see everybody next week. I'm not sure what time next week will be, but we'll figure that out. Okay.